Hey girl gang, it's Dr. Joy here and you are watching Delivering Joy MDTV. Welcome to Well Woman Wednesday, where we have been talking about birth control options. We're going to be talking about vaginal inserts today, spermicides, and this new option called Phexxi. Phexxi, kind of like sexy, but Phexxi with a PH on it. So these are actual things you can put into the vagina that help to kind of like immobilize sperm. So make sure you keep watching to learn about these. All right, so these are options that are not really necessarily widely used, but they are options, especially for ladies who are interested in avoiding hormones. So if you are someone who is not able to use hormonal birth control because maybe you have a medical condition or you really just are not feeling the hormones, this is an option for you to definitely check out. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about spermicides and also the new option Phexxi, which is a vaginal insert. And they're a little bit different, but they work the same way. And basically that you're putting this insert into the vagina and it's causing a hostile environment for sperm. So you insert it pretty much like a tampon. It comes with an applicator that you place into the vagina, and you're going to put in whatever the medium is. So it could be with spermicides, it comes in foams, gels, creams, all suppositories. They're all forms of spermicides. And then Phexxi is kind of like a gel that just goes into an applicator that you insert into the vagina, and you just kind of shoot it in there in the vagina, and it creates a hostile territory for sperm. So I'm going to cover spermicides first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons, right? So spermicides are like an oldie but goodie, tried and true. This is your grandmama's birth control, and this is what they used to put in the vagina to help prevent sperm from actually getting up through the cervix, into the uterus, out to the tubes where that egg is waiting. And I just threw this video in to remind you guys. I know we've seen it in several of my birth control videos, but just so you can recall how sperm actually goes from the vagina, through the cervix, up into the uterus, out to the tubes to fertilize the egg. And then that egg, once fertilized, becomes an embryo, goes back down into the uterus, and implants as a pregnancy. So the whole idea here is to stop the whole thing before it starts by immobilizing the sperm in the vagina. So it's keeping the sperm from doing any of that. So with spermicides, it's using a chemical called minoxidil 9. And what the whole point of minoxidil is to immobilize the sperm. So it's keeping the sperm from swimming around. So it's just kind of like paralyzing the sperm, essentially. So that's what the purpose of the spermicide is. And like I said, they have made it, remade it, remixed it in all sort of different mediums, like creams, gels, suppositories, which are like in a solid form. Then you put them in the vagina and they melt. So they have all kind of different versions of this, but you can use them by themselves, but even better if you're using them with a barrier method like a diaphragm or a cervical cap, which are super old. I mean, I don't even think, even as an OBGYN in training, I ever saw more than like 1 or 2 people using these methods. So these are super old methods, but they work still. I have a friend who fits people for diaphragms. So I think when I get ready to talk about diaphragms, I'm gonna have to bring a special guest, because I ain't never actually fitted anybody for a diaphragm. Don't tell nobody. But yeah, you can totally coat diaphragms or cervical caps in spermicides, or use spermicides in conjunction with those to help out with the level of protection that you get with spermicides. In addition, you can use spermicides with condoms. Your spermicide needs to be inserted into the vagina before you get started with sexual intercourse. So about 10 to 15 minutes before you're ready to get the groove started is when you want to go ahead and insert your spermicide. You also want to reinsert your spermicide if you go for round 2 or 3 or 4. Now keep in mind, the more spermicide you use, the more likely you are to have irritation to your vaginal area or even to your partner's genital area. Now, in terms of how well this spermicide works, if you are using it perfectly, meaning that you're applying it before sexual intercourse every time, not going ahead and starting a little bit, then stopping, putting it in, and then starting back, or forgetting to put it in before round 2, that means perfect use. You always use it exactly as you're supposed to. Then 18 out of 100 women using it will get pregnant. So a lot higher than what we've been talking about with some of our other methods, which I'll link in the cards up here with our birth control playlist. Now, if you are using it like normal human beings, like me and you are normal human beings, then 28 out of 100 women will actually become pregnant using this method. So definitely, you know, close to 1/3 of folks who are using spermicide alone are going to become pregnant. So that's a little, you know, a little, not so effective, I guess I should say. Try to remain positive. So if you add condoms or another barrier method, it definitely increases the effectiveness, but certainly not to the level of if you were using a hormonal birth control. So definitely something to keep in mind. If you are able to use a hormonal birth control and you, you know, are serious about preventing pregnancy, it might be a better look to go for a hormonal birth control. So let's switch gears now, and I want to talk a little bit about Phexxi. Phexxi is a pretty new product. It's been on the market now for about a year, and it's being marketed as a non-hormonal, easy-to-use birth control. So Phexxi is also a vaginal insert. It comes in a little applicator that comes sealed in a little pouch, and you just kind of break it open. You insert it into the vagina. You push it in. It's kind of like if you've ever used like Monistat yeast infection cream, you put the applicator in, you insert the gel, and then you're good to go. And Phexxi is not a spermicide. It's actually lactic acid, citric acid, and potassium. And so what it does is it actually keeps the pH of the vagina low. It keeps it at an acidic pH. And your vagina actually likes to be at an acidic pH. We have bacteria in our vagina that make lactic acid, which is one of the components already in the Phexxi. So lactic acid is what keeps our vagina at a healthy pH. Whenever you have sex and your male partner ejaculates or comes in the vagina, that semen that comes out of the penis actually has a very high pH. And that high pH in the semen is actually meant to neutralize the acid in your vagina to try to protect the sperm so that they can survive in the vagina long enough to get through the cervix and up into the uterus and out into the fallopian tubes. So semen protects the sperm and nourishes the sperm and tries to neutralize the acid in the vagina. So Phexxi counteracts that by keeping the vagina real acidic so that the semen can't neutralize the vagina and the sperm goes unprotected, so that it's kind of, you know, basically killed in the vagina before it can get up through the cervix. So it's a pretty neat idea. I mean, you got to give the folks credit for that. Phexxi is a prescription medication that you have to get from your healthcare provider, and when you get it, it comes in a box. It has 12 pre-filled applicators that come individually packaged, and when you're ready to use it, you want to use it within an hour of having sexual intercourse. So if it's been longer than an hour, you got to get a new one and put a new one in. So if you take a little bit too long with your foreplay, you got to start over and put in a new Phexxi. And then if you have sex more than once within that hour, you still have to put in a new Phexxi. So every time you have a new vaginal sexual encounter, you got to use a new one. So it's very important to note that, because if you don't use it properly, then your risk of getting pregnant increases. If you've ever used a tampon, you should be able to use Phexxi. If you've ever used, like I said, a monostat yeast infection cream, it's pretty easy to use Phexxi. So you take your pre-filled applicator. You're gonna, of course, wash your hands before you start doing anything with the applicator in your vaginal area. And then you'll follow the directions exactly as they're written on your box. The most common side effect when Phexxi was studied was actually irritation to the genital area for both the vaginal area and the genital area of male partners. And then also urinary tract infection was noted quite often. So if you're someone who has recurrent urinary tract infections, Phexxi may not be a good choice for you. So you want to talk to your physician or other healthcare provider before choosing Phexxi and let them know about any frequent infections. Also saw an increased risk of vaginal infections like bacterial vaginosis. In terms of how well Phexxi worked, it looks like about 13 out of 100 people got pregnant, but since this has only been out for about a year, still continuing to follow up on those studies to see how well it worked, because of course in clinical trials everybody's using this medication perfectly, so it's kind of hard to see like what actual use is going to look like and how many people are going to get pregnant. So still developing stories, so I'll keep you guys posted. You know I will. So now that we kind of have a pretty good idea about both vaginal inserts, let's talk about pros and cons. So I like to be positive, so I'll talk about the pros first. With both vaginal inserts, the biggest thing that I see as a pro is that there's no hormones in either insert. So that's good, because there are certainly women who are not able to tolerate hormones, taking hormones. Maybe they have a medical condition, like they have blood clots in their legs or lungs before in the past and are on blood thinners for that, or they have a lot of trouble tolerating hormones because they have a lot of issues with mental health. So I have had some women who just cannot handle having hormones, even low dose hormones, when it comes to mood stability. So that can be an issue for some folks. Some folks really just do not want to put hormones in their body, and I can respect that. So if that's you, this might be a method that you're interested in. With spermicides, they're pretty inexpensive, ranging from about $3 to $15 at the drugstore, and you can get those over the counter. So you can just like run by your local drugstore, grab those, take it home, get it on, everything's good. So that's a big plus, because a lot of birth control methods require you to get a prescription these days. So if you can get something over the counter and it's quick and easy, that's a good, that's a good deal. The other pro I see is that you only need these when you're having sex. So if you're somebody who, reserves sex for a special occasion, or you're in between bays right now, you're not really super active, that might be a plus for you, because if you're on hormonal birth control, or you have a long-acting reversible birth control, or you're taking pills or patches or rings, that's kind of something that requires you to have long-term use. Well, with these, it's only like, okay, yeah, I have, I'm got somebody going on right now, so I can use this, and you can just only use it as needed. So that's a neat pro. So let's move on to the cons, because in my opinion, there are quite a few, but hey, it's all about what you like and what you can stick with. But really the biggest one that I saw was the time constraints. Having to get that spermicide in within 10 to 15 minutes before having sex, or get Phexxi in an hour, within the hour before having sex, and then having to reapply in between acts, it really kind of decreases the spontaneity of the whole thing. And I can see that really being a problem for most of the people that I serve, that I work with. But maybe it wouldn't be for some folks too. The vaginal irritation, I think, is a big one, because both methods reported vaginal burning or itching sensation as one of their top side effects. And if you're trying to get your groove on, the last thing you want is burning or itching in your vagina. I'm just saying. And then the whole reapplying thing, like, you know, I can't really see it. Like, oh, hold up, babe. Let me just reapply this real fast. Like, I just don't know if I would just really be feeling sexy about pulling out my applicator and shooting Spermicide or grabbing a new Phexxi to put in my vagina. I just don't know if that would just really turn me on, or if it would turn my partner on. But hey, if that's you, do you, boo. And then the increased risk of bacterial vaginosis and urinary tract infections just doesn't seem like fun to me. But hey, if it's a good birth control for you, it may be a great birth control for you. If that's something that you're into, go right ahead. But as you know, a physician and a women's health physician, the biggest con for me was the effectiveness. Like, I'm like, whoa, you know, if almost a third of folks are getting pregnant, and this is supposed to be a method to help me not get pregnant, it's like, why would I choose it? I don't know. But if this is the only method that really works for you, or the only one that really interests you, it's better than not having a method at all. Because if we really think about it, I guess, if 28 out of 100 people are getting pregnant with spermicide, that's way better than 80 out of 100, which is how many folks would probably get pregnant if you were using absolutely nothing. So I guess maybe it's still okay. The other thing that was a con that I really read about is the increased risk of irritation to both partners' genitalia. So if your genital area and your partner's genital area are both irritated, the skin can have breaks in it, and that can really increase your risk of HIV and hepatitis and syphilis, because those areas can have little tears in the skin. And anytime the skin is disrupted in your vagina or on your partner's penis, that can really spell trouble, especially if there are sexually transmitted infections that we don't know about that are present. So I always worry about irritation. That's never a good thing down there. So that's a huge con for me. But like I said, the best pregnancy prevention plan is the one that you like and the one that you'll actually use. And if you're not preventing pregnancy, you're planning for pregnancy. So I hope you learned something today about this method. If you did, give your girl a thumbs up. And if you want to learn more about women's wellness on Wednesdays, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you are the first one to know when videos go up. I will catch you next Well Woman Wednesday. Peace.